for the final talk in this session before lunch, we have Anatita Chakrabarty, and she's going to tell us all about exploiting therapy-induced senescence. Do you want this?
Can you hear me?
Well,
In the back?
yeah, but if you're going to walk, use this.
Okay. Okay. So is it too loud? I hope not. So thank you, everybody. And I'm sorry, I'm the barrier between you and the lunch. So, but I hope that at the end of my talk, I'll be able to give a different message than what you have been hearing, especially because I'm not a mathematician, I'm not an evolutionary biologist. I'm a cancer biologist who has been studying, who has been engaged in modeling drug resistance, especially in breast cancer, for past 18 years. The way that most cell biologists do, which is exposing cancer cell lines in petri dish to escalating amount drugs and then studying, finding out how the cells become resistant, and then finding out right combination therapies to overcome the resistance, taking it to mice model and validating it and hoping that when patients are treated with the same combination or combinations of drugs, they will get benefited, which in reality doesn't happen. And we know why it doesn't happen, because no two cancers are the same. On top of that, as we know that cancer drug resistance is also an evolving phenomena. So about past 6 to 7 years ago, when Ranjini, one of your own graduate students, was in my lab working as an undergrad researcher, it triggered me that we could actually study drug resistance or model drug resistance from a different perspective, which might be a little bit helpful for patients. So, like drug resistance, as we are all talking about, can be from genetic mechanism or can be from non-genetic mechanism driven by epigenetic plasticity. Now, one of our lab is when we started thinking about modeling drug resistance in a different prospect, we thought about phenomena which is known as therapy-induced senescence. Senescence is a growth-arrested phase. Therapy-induced senescence, which is already recognized, is driven by massive epigenetic reprogramming. Now, what is therapy-induced senescence? Therapy-induced senescence is nothing but a cell cycle arrest majorly, but this is a transient cell cycle arrest. This is not quiescence. This is not dormancy. This is a transient cell cycle arrest, which leads to many different types of changes in the cell where it started. And it also does affect the neighboring cell types. If you can appreciate this very complicated right part of the slide, is it also affects the environmental cells through production of a massive amount of secretory proteins which are known as SAS. And it is believed that SAS actually are responsible for therapy resistance and also increasing the aggressive nature of the original cancer type. So now it has been recognized. So I said that therapy-induced senescence is a transient event, TIS. I will call it as TIS for simplicity's sake. So TIS is a transient event, and it has already been recognized that it is also a very inherently dynamic event, means it changes over time. Okay, so that led us to propose few years back that if it is a dynamic event, maybe we could actually model it in a dynamic to capture the dynamic nature of TIS, and eventually we could test some evolution guided therapeutic strategies. So we have done many work on this modeling the dynamic nature of TIS. For the simplicity sake and for the time constraint, I'm just showing you a very, very simple example. We have a lot of background data to support this, so I'll be happy to answer your question if you have any deeper queries about it. Let's just look at it from a very simple perspective. So what we did to model the dynamic nature of TIS is to take triple negative breast cancer cells in a petri dish, and we exposed it to, in this case, I'm showing you an experimental drug. It is not relevant what drug it is. because this is a chemotherapeutic drug, most chemotherapeutic drugs trigger Ts in TNBC cells. So that is actually a classical examples of classes of drugs which can induce Ts in cells. So what we did to model the dynamic nature of Ts, we exposed the TNBC cells in a petri dish with a predetermined amount of drug, which we know within 48 hours will trigger senescence, and then wash the drug off, let the cells grow for 6-7 days. It can be different for different cell types, and every single day or every alternate days we measure the biomarkers of this as well as cell proliferation, because it's a transient proliferative arrest. So what we found is that as the days goes by after the initial drug treatment, there is a massive increase of biomarker of senescence. Okay, but as the days goes by, this biomarker level falls down, which validates that it's a transient event, and the associated cell cycle arrest is the maximum when the senescence is the maximum here. So there is a peak of senescence, there is a cell cycle arrest, proliferative arrest, the peak is here, and the cells start re-entering the cell cycle, they start growing back again as the cells come out of the senescence. So yes, as expected, it is a dynamic event. Now, everybody would ask me, so this is just a, cell line event. So it could be just a, fluke of cell culture. So we have tested in other cell lines, other TNBC cell lines with other drugs. But the question still remains, have you tested in vivo? So what I showed you in petri dish is very difficult to model in mice. Because in that case, you actually have to standardize the protocol, kill the mice in every single day or so, and collect the tissue and identify the Ts biomarker as well as the cell cycle biomarkers. So while we were doing those, while we were engaged in optimizing those parameters, what we did in the meantime, we took advantage of the fact that therapy-induced senescence is actually a conserved event. It's just a stress response to drug. So it can happen with the same drug at the same concentration or maybe little different concentration in a normal cell line as well. It not needed to be a cancer cell line. So what we did, we took zebrafish because we have a very good zebrafish facility, and zebrafish larva up to day 21 or so, up to initial month or so during their development, they are transparent. So they give you a very good opportunity to track them in live condition. So what we did, we know that this particular drug that we are working on, that can also trigger senescence in zebrafish. And we can even measure the not cell proliferation, but the measure whether the drug is working or not by measuring the GSH level. Because you can measure GSH level by live cell tracking, and this drug actually reduces the GSH level when active, and when it loses its activity, the GSH level goes back up. So what we have done, we did exactly the same experiment that we did with the cell line in petri dish, and basically we exposed the day 3 post-fertilization zebrafish larvae to the drug and sublethal concentrations of drug, and we track them, we wash the drug off after some time, and then track the zebrafish larvae for some time and did the live cell tracking. So what we found, as expected, that within very short period of time, there is a peak of senescence, and this senescence comes from the gut area of the zebrafish for good reason. And then it stays for another day or two, and then it declines. And as I told you, we couldn't really measure the cell proliferation, but we measured the GSH level, and the GSH level actually tallied with the senescence. So, somehow we model the dynamic senescence, dynamic nature of senescence in vitro and maybe semi in vivo with the zebrafish model. Now, is this really related to drug resistance as people claim? So what we did, we really didn't expect this temporary event to trigger any sort of drug resistance or drug tolerance. But so for testing that, what we did, remember, we kept the cells, after washing the drug off, we kept the cells for some time, and every single time point we were measuring senescence and cell proliferation biomarker. So now every single time point, what we did, we reintroduced the parental drug at the parental concentration. And we were hoping that, well, the cells will again be killed by the drug because it's a transient event. So to our, contrary to our expectation, we found that when we challenge the cells at different time points after the inducing the senescence, they did grow slow, but they did not stop growing. Even in fact, when we measure the cell death, we did not see any new cells are dying or so. Now this is a 2D observation. So when we took it to the 3D for much longer time period, I am sure that you would be able to appreciate that there was no difference in cell growth in presence and absence of the drug at different recovery days. So which led us to think that, well, even though it is a transient event, maybe somehow it has induced some sort of a tolerant memory to the cells. Okay. Now what we did, we increased the concentration of the drug to about the double, and we saw that they still remain tolerant. So did we do it in the zebrafish again? Yes, we did the same rechallenge. We call it rechallenge experiment, and we took it to the zebrafish, and we saw that after treating the zebrafish with the drug at a time period when the senescence, initial senescence signal was completely gone, the zebrafish did not show any evidences of senescence anymore. So they somehow remembered that these drug, we have to fight against this drug. So that means what I'm trying to convey to you is that although senescence is a dynamic, therapy-induced senescence is a dynamic short-term event, it somehow makes the cell remember that they were exposed to the drug, and so that they can start counteracting the drug effective. So now what happens to the resistant cells? So we had the reason why we chose this particular drug, experimental drug, in the very beginning of setting the model up is because we have a cell line, resistant cell line against this particular drug, which is growing for past 7-8 years. So this is a very stable line. Even if we take the drug away, the cell line still can cell line still can grow as drug resistance. So means if we put the drug back in, the cell lines doesn't get killed. So what we have done, we have checked whether treating the cell lines with the drug again and comparing side by side with sensitive cell treated with the drug, if we can see any evidences of senescence. As you can see, this is the parental sensitive line. When we treated with the drug, at a massive amount of senescence is coming up. And in the resistance, long-term resistant cells, there is no evidences of senescence. There is no evidences of decrease in the proliferation. So we did transcriptomics data collected from both short-term sensitive cells and the long-term resistant cells, drug treated. And when we compared the transcriptomics data between these two sets, we found that in terms of the genes which are involved in secretory functions as well as cell cycle functions, they are actually different between, by PCA component analysis, they are actually different between these two cell types. So basically, this is what we think is happening, that after we expose the cells to the anti-cancer therapy, the chemotherapeutic drug, it is actually inducing a transient senescence-like phenomena, which is making the cells tolerant. Now, if we let this thing go without the drug for a long time, they might become sensitive. But in real life, what might happen, that we will be exposing the same cells to multiple doses of cyclical doses of anti-cancer treatment. So the tolerance will eventually be embedded as a memory in these cells so that they will eventually become resistant. I'll be done in a few minutes. So does it give us an opportunity to strategize a different type of therapeutic approach? So we thought that this is a good opportunity for us to test the double bind strategy, where we can use the first bind, the parental drug, to induce this, and then second bind, where we can actually specifically target the senescent cells. Senescent cells have their own vulnerability. And this would be a sequential treatment, just like the double bind therapy should be. One thing we have to remember that this is a transient event. So there, the second bind, the senescence targeting therapy, which is senotherapeutic, known as senotherapeutic, that has to be given at a particular time point. Accordingly, what we did, we tested several different senotherapeutics which are known in the literature. People have been using as primarily as anti-aging drugs. Some people are using as adjuvant therapy in cancer treatment. Out of them, I'm going to show you two particular senotherapeutics. One is a TGF-beta inhibitor. There is a reason why this works. So in this particular combination, you can see that this senescent population actually goes down when you use the senotherapeutics. So not only the senescence population goes down with the combination of senotherapeutics, it also reduces the cell proliferation. Same goes for a combination of the parental drug along with an anti-apoptotic drug known as navitoclax, which targets the BCL2 family members. These also works very nicely as senotherapeutics. Now I told you the time factor. You have to actually use this double bind approach at a specific time because senescence population goes away. So what we did, we took our different recovery days and started adding the senotherapeutics, and as you can expect, they worked the best when the senescence population was the highest. So again, giving you the proof that this can work as a double bind strategy, and if you add it, and it can even work better if you add it at the right time point. So I'm skipping this, but what I'm going to tell you that we have done exactly the same experiment in zebrafish again, and we saw that if you add it at the right time, the combination, the senotherapeutic, after inducing the senescence in the right order, then it actually works in vivo as well. So in conclusion, what I want to convey to you is that TIS is an intermediate state, possibly, between therapy sensitive and resistance phenotype. It can also give as a handle to devise a new type of double bind strategy. But we have to remember that because it's a dynamic event, we have to remember when we have to actually apply the second blind. And up to 66% of clinical sample, especially those are treated with chemo radiation therapy and cycle inhibitors, they experience TIS. Even in patient clinical samples, these are detectable. And this is not necessarily only specific for breast cancer, but also for a wide range of cancers, which give us an opportunity to test it in extensive manner and to hopefully to translate it to clinic in some day. So with that, I would like to thank everybody, and especially to my lab people who have done the work. And I have to thank Ranjini, who got it all started, and again Joel to convince me that I can actually present my experimental data to an audience who is mathematical evolutionary biologists. So with that, I again thank you, and I can take any questions if you have.
Okay, if there is any quick question, we can have one. If not, we can break for lunch and maybe find Anatida at the break and have a chat with her directly.